who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Purport. There are various grades of men, and out of many thousands, one may be sufficiently interested in transcendental realization to try to know what is the self, what is the body, and what is the absolute truth. Generally, mankind is simply engaged in the animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first 6 chapters of the Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge, in understanding the self, the supreme, the super self, and the process of realization by Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and discrimination of the self from matter. However, Krishna can be known only by persons who are in Krishna consciousness. Other transcendentalists may achieve impersonal Brahman realization, for this is easier than understanding Krishna. Krishna is the supreme person, but at the same time, he is beyond the knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma. The yogis and jnanis are confused in their attempts to understand Krishna. Although the greatest of the impersonalists, Sripad Sankaracharya, has admitted in his Gita commentary that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, his followers do not accept Krishna as such, for it is very difficult to know Krishna, even though one has transcendental realization of impersonal Brahman. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, the primeval Lord Govinda, Ishwar Paramakrishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadi Adi Govinda, Sarvakaranam Karanam. Excuse me. It's very difficult for the non-devotees to know him. Although non-devotees declare that the path of bhakti or devotional service is very easy, they cannot practice it. If the path of bhakti is so easy, as the non-devotee class of men proclaim, then why do they take up the difficult path? Actually, the path of bhakti is not easy. The so-called path of bhakti practiced by unauthorized persons without knowledge of bhakti may be easy, but when it is practiced factually, according to the rules and regulations, the speculative scholars and philosophers fall away from the path. Srila Rupa Goswami writes in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 12101, Shruti Smriti Paranadi Pancharatra Vidimbina Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Upata Yaiva Kalpate. Devotional service of the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narada Pancharatra is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. It is not possible for the Brahman realized impersonalist or the Paramatma realized yogi to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as a son of Mother Yashoda or the charioteer of Arjuna. Even the great demigods are sometimes confused about Krishna. Muyanti yatsurayaha. Mam tu veda nakaschana. No one knows me as I am, the Lord says. And if one does know him, then samahatma sudurlabaha. Such a great soul is very rare. Therefore, unless one practices devotional service to the Lord, one cannot know Krishna as he is, tatvata. Even though one is a great scholar or philosopher, only the pure devotees can know something of the inconceivable transcendental qualities of Krishna. His being the cause of all causes, his omnipotence and opulence, and his wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Because Krishna is benevolently inclined to his devotees, he is the last word in Brahman realization, and the devotees alone can realize him as he is. Therefore, it is said, Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhaved Graham Indriyai Sevan Mukhe Hi Jivado Swayam Eva Sparatyada No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service unto him. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-2-234. Text number 4. Bhumirapo nalo vayu kamano bhurevacha ahankara iti yame bina prakritir astada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. Purport. The science of God analyzes the constitutional position of God and his diverse energies. Material nature is called Prakriti, or the energy of the Lord in his different Purusha incarnations, expansions, as described in the Narada Pancharatra, one of the Sattvata Tantras. Vishnu's Tutrini Rupani Purushakyanyato Vidu Ekam tu Mahata Shastri Dvitiyam Twanda Samstitam Tritiyam Sarvabhuta Bhutastam Tani Gyatva Vimuchite. For material creation, Lord Krishna's plenary expansion assumes 3 Vishnus. The first one, Mahavishnu, creates the total material energy known as the Mahatattva. The second, Garbhodaka Shayi Vishnu, enters into all the universes to create diversities in each of them. The third, Shirodaka Shayi Vishnu, is diffused as the all-pervading supersoul in all the universes and is known as Paramatma. He is present even within the atoms. Anyone who knows these 3 Vishnus can be liberated from material entanglement. This material world is a temporary manifestation of one of the energies of the Lord. All the activities of the material world are directed by these 3 Vishnu expansions of Lord Krishna. These Purushas are called incarnations. Generally, one who does not know the science of God Krishna assumes that this material world is for the enjoyment of the living entities, and that the living entities are the Purushas, the causes, controllers, and enjoyers of the material energy. According to Bhagavad Gita, this atheistic conclusion is false. In the verse under discussion, it is stated that Krishna is the original cause of the material manifestation. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms this. The ingredients of the material manifestation are separated energies of the Lord. Even the Brahma Jyotir, which is the ultimate goal of the impersonalist, is a spiritual energy manifested in the spiritual sky. There are no spiritual diversities in the Brahma Jyotir, as there are in the Vaikuntha Lokas. And the impersonalist accepts this Brahma Jyotir as the ultimate eternal goal. The Paramatma manifestation is also temporary, all-pervasive, is also a temporary, all-pervasive aspect of the Shirodaka Shayi Vishnu. The Paramatma manifestation is not eternal in the spiritual world. Therefore, the factual absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He is the complete energetic person, and he possesses different separated and internal energies. In the material energy, the principal manifestations are 8, as above mentioned. Out of these, the first 5 manifestations, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, are called the 5 gigantic creations, or the gross creations, within which the 5 sense objects are included. They are the manifestations of physical sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Material science comprises these 10 items and nothing more. But the other 3 items, namely mind, intelligence, and false ego, are neglected by the materialist. Philosophers who deal with mental activities are also not perfect in knowledge because they do not know the ultimate source, Krishna. The false ego, I am, and it is mine, which constitute the basic principle of material existence, includes 10 sense organs for material activities. Intelligence refers to the total material creation called the Mahatattva. Therefore, from the 8 separated energies of the Lord are manifested 24 elements of the material world, which are the subject matter of Sankhya atheistic philosophy. They are originally offshoots from Krishna's energies and are separated from him. But atheistic Sankhya philosophers with a poor fund of knowledge do not know Krishna as the cause of all causes. The subject matter for discussion in the Sankhya philosophy is only the manifestation of the external energy of Krishna, as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita, text number 5. Apareyam itastvanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yajjedam darjate jagat. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjun, there is another superior energy of mind, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Purport. Here it is clearly mentioned that living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. And it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:87-30 as follows. Aparimita dhruvas tanu brito yadi sarvagatas tarhina sasyeti niyamo dhruva netarata ajanicha yan mayam tad avimucha niyantri bhavet samam anujanatam yaramatam mata dustataya. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually guided by a faulty and polluted opinion. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy, matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains a stage called mukti, or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter, and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies of Krishna. And when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious, or liberated. Text number 6. Etad yonini bhutani sarvanit upadarya aham krishnasya jagata prabhava pralayastata. All created beings have their source in these two natures of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world. Know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. Purport. Everything that exists is a product of matter and spirit. Spirit is the basic field of creation, and matter is created by spirit. Spirit is not created at a certain stage of material development. Rather, this material world is manifested only on the basis of spiritual energy. This material body is developed because spirit is present within matter. A child grows gradually to boyhood and then to manhood because that superior energy, spirit soul, is present. Similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation of the gigantic universe is developed because of the presence of the super soul, Vishnu. Therefore, spirit and matter, which combine to manifest this gigantic universal form, are originally two energies of the Lord. And consequently, the Lord is the original cause of everything. A fragmental part and parcel of the Lord, namely the living entity, may be the cause of a big skyscraper, a big factory, or even a big city, but he cannot be the cause of a big universe. The cause of the big universe is the big soul, or the super soul. And Krishna, the supreme, is the cause of both the big and small souls. Therefore, he is the original cause of all causes. This is confirmed in Katha Upanishad 2:13. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam. Hare Krishna. Drona, the next verse in purport is quite long and it's 5:19. What should I do?
I think this is a good place to stop.
Okay.
They have a couple questions in the chat. So I think it'll be a great time to reflect on all the knowledge that we've heard. There's a lot there in both verses and the purports. So let me jump into the questions real quick.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to also ask a question, they can either type it into the chat or raise your hand virtually and we'll call on you. First question is, what does knowledge of bhakti entail?
What does knowledge of bhakti entail? Well, first and foremost, separating bhakti from being something that can be applied to someone other than Krishna. Step number one, I would say. Because Srila Prabhupada explains in a certain place that people try to use bhakti in reference to Shiva, Durga, Kali. In other words, I have bhakti for them. But bhakti means devotional service. And the highest form of bhakti is pure devotional service, which denotes the fact that there are different stages of devotional service. So the first thing to understand is that bhakti means devotional service to Krishna, to no one else. You can't have bhakti for me. You can't even have bhakti for your guru. Bhakti is for Krishna. That's the first thing that really has to be imprinted in our minds, because especially in India, where the knowledge of the Vedas and philosophies is much more prominent than in the West. Like, I was not brought up in the Vedic philosophy, so I don't know all those subtleties that people apply themselves to in the Hindu culture. But having some work with the Hindu culture, especially at the present moment, I know that people are confused about bhakti. In fact, I'm giving a seminar in May to generally the Indian community, the Hindu community, what they call Western yogis and people like that, about bhakti, the science and the practice of bhakti. So to try to remove some of that confusion. So the main thing to understand is that bhakti is only for Krishna, exclusively for Krishna. And it means devotional service to Krishna. So it starts with that. And then Srila Prabhupada says, it begins with the tongue. His bhakti begins with the tongue. Vibrating, the sound vibration of Hare Krishna mantra, and of course other mantras as well from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and tasting prasadam. That's how it begins. But especially hearing, what is that? Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. So that 9 processes of bhakti yoga described by Prahlad Maharaj, it's very scientific, begins with hearing. So yes, that's how we understand bhakti. First, that is only for Krishna. Second, that it means service to Krishna. And the highest level is service with love, with no expectation of any return. Srila Prabhupada says that like Radharani, she doesn't expect anything from Krishna. That's the highest level of devotional service. In the lower levels of bhakti, you might be doing bhakti and expecting some result. It's just beginning stages, neophyte stages. But as we make progress, it's only we do service for the satisfaction of Krishna, for his pleasure, and that becomes pure devotional service. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you, Brother Budget Prabhu. I don't see any hands raised yet. I will ask the next question. Studying the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narada Pancharatra as suggested is likely going to take forever. 8 to 5, 9 to 5 jobs. Please suggest something easy, aka a shortcut.
Well, when you say it's suggested, maybe you're referring to something you have read. If you refer to Srila Prabhupada's instructions to us, he does not overemphasize studying all these Vedic literatures. In fact, the amount of Vedic knowledge you need is within Bhagavad Gita, number one, practically speaking, just Bhagavad Gita. But then we have Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we have Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we even have Brahma Samhita by Srila Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And within the context of the purports, Srila Prabhupada refers to various Vedic literatures and he gives verses, Sanskrit, translation, everything. Is it required for us in order to go back to Godhead to study all these literatures? Answer is no, a resounding no. And Srila Prabhupada many times would say, don't waste time. Whoever asked the question was saying, it will take a whole lifetime. I challenge that. I'd say it will take a lifetime to study Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, just those two. Whole lifetime. Prabhupada would say, my Guru Maharaj could speak on one verse of Bhagavatam for 3 months. So calculate that. 18,000 verses times 3 months for each verse. That's a lifetime. And then Bhagavad Gita. So my humble suggestion, which I try to follow, I try not to make a suggestion of something that I don't believe in or something I don't do. My humble suggestion is just focus on the primary literatures given by Srila Prabhupada. And then devotees have also written some books, some memories of Srila Prabhupada, their own life stories in connection with the movement. When you have time, you can read those as well. But if you give a full study of Bhagavad Gita, I mean, as it says in the first purport, Bhagavad Gita should be read scrutinizingly. We were speaking about that this weekend with devotees from Calgary. The serious study. And the first thing that popped in my mind was that word that Prabhupada uses. And I looked it up in the database. He uses the word scrutinizingly 250 times. That means that word is important. So we should apply intense scrutiny to the purports, especially given by Srila Prabhupada. And I promise you, it'll take you a lifetime. So if you want to spend your lifetime doing something, apply it to what Srila Prabhupada has given us. And here's the bottom line. He sacrificed his life and energy in his later years to give us this information. Do you realize how difficult it is to write? Try writing. It's so difficult. It gives you a headache. So Prabhupada was getting headaches to prepare this literature. And we think, let me read some other book. Let me study Sanskrit so I can read some other books. I say, no, just study Prabhupada's books. You'll be fascinated as you go through them and you're chanting and doing devotional service. It just becomes sweeter and sweeter as you read it. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. And I think there was a reference to this that just came through. And I think this is important because in this we cover multiple purports. So if you do have a question and you ask a question about a particular purport, just jot down a note and say, text, second paragraph, and then we can refer to it. We can bring it back up on the screen and then we can look at the context of it. So this particular question, it looks like it was in the context of from Srila Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Shruti Smriti Puranadi. So devotional service to the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic scriptures, such as the Upanishads, Puranas, and Narada Pancharatra, is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society.
Yeah.
So the question was in reference, do we have to study these books?
Answer is no. Because all we need in terms of those books, like Rupa Goswami is giving us the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which that verse is quoted from. And Srila Prabhupada has painstakingly presented the summary of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So the underlining point there is that if I don't study those literatures, will I be acting against those literatures? Again, the answer is no, because Srila Prabhupada gave us every tool necessary to follow those standards within all the Vedic literatures. He gave us that. And then remember now, just remember, Srimad Bhagavatam is called the cream of all Vedic knowledge. The cream of all the Vedic knowledge is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you want to make sure you're following the Vedic standards according to Shruti Smriti Purana Adi Pancharati Vidimbina, then make sure you study Srimad Bhagavatam, especially and Bhagavad Gita. And then you'll be safe. Don't worry, you'll be safe. Prabhupada did not leave us hanging to where we have to go and study Sanskrit and study all these literatures to figure it out. There's nothing to figure out. Nothing to figure out. This is within Srila Prabhupada's books. That's my humble opinion there.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. Very important for us to know. Mother Vindyavali, you had your hand up, and it went down, and then sometimes I see you waving at the screen. So I don't know if that's
My
a question.
good friend,
Go first, if
Vindyavali.
not.
Hare
She's
Krishna,
my very good
my
friend.
humble obeisances, Prabhu.
Hari
Hare
Bol, Hari.
Krishna, Hare Krishna. Now, when you are saying that bhakti, when I was young, we used to learn in India. I don't know, I didn't know that meaning, but you don't have any bhai or bhakti. Means you're not scared of the people, and you don't have bhakti also. So that means I used to think whether elders, if they say something, either I should be scared and listen to them, or I should respect, and they are elder people, I should respect and listen to them. That's how I learned, Prabhu. And then afterwards, now I came into Krishna consciousness, then I know this is devotional service and Krishna is the one only ultimate thing. But of course, elders also, they gave me this life and I came into this world, and then I'm realizing all the things. That is, I'm thankful to my elderly people, my mother or my parents or anybody. That is one thing. And then another thing is you're saying that Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, reading or not reading. I really not a reading person, actually. Shravanam only is my main thing. I listen and I want to grasp from there. And I just try to, if anybody comes without knowing people, if I come across anybody, I just try to give my little bit knowledge, whatever I learned from the class. And my husband's son, my brother's son, he says, what did you learn from today's class? He will ask me every day, my son. So what did you learn? What is the moral? So I just discuss with him. That's how I polish my memory. That's all. But reading Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, as you said, is not enough for lifetime. No. Life and we have to get more, so many lives to get into this. And the more we read, the more we get the nectar. And new things we realize, we know. So that's what I felt, Prabhu. That's all I wanted to think.
Excellent. Beautiful
Thank
way.
you very much.
Beautiful way to end the class.
Tomorrow I'll attend the class.
Yes, you summed it up so perfectly. There's nothing I can add. It was just very.
Day after tomorrow, I'm coming there.
Yes.
Philadelphia.
Thank you.
Prabhu.
Good. Thank you, Mother Vindyavali, very much. Mother Vatsala, we ran out of time.
Sure, no problem.
But
Hari Bol, Vatsalji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
on Wednesday,
Humble pranam.
we can take your question first on Wednesday.
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you. No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for
Thank you
letting
to all
me
the
tell.
devotees. Hope you have a wonderful night. I hope you enjoyed
Yes.
the session of the Bhagavad Gita. Our gratitude, Balabhadra Prabhu, to you for leading us in this session. And we'll resume again on Hare Krishna.
Thank you
up on
very
the
much,
screen.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
New Vrindavan, giving us mercy from New Vrindavan.
Hare
Oh.
Krishna, thank you so
Haribol,
much.
Sitaji. Haribol.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Vrindavan.
You know, for those that are there, we're talking about Srimad Bhagavatam. If you haven't joined or tuned into any of our Srimad Bhagavatam classes, I invite you to come every morning, 7:50 to 8:30, 7 days a week, so you can pick and choose, you know, what days work for you. If you'd like to join every day, we're there every day, studying along very systematically. Great time to join. We just started the first chapter. Okay, so we'll leave you with that. We'll hope to see you soon. We'll gather back for this Bhagavad Gita Sangha Wednesday at 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.